Hey there, Zlatko here. Welcome to What is My Brain podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I get the opportunity to chat with fellow founders and business operators about their journey and how they got to where they are now, where they are going, and how they're going to get there. I'm planning on bringing guests and touching on topics such as running multiple businesses, executing ideas, and just spitballing about random topics and current events. It's a casual conversation, and that will hopefully bring value to anyone that decides to listen. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. What's up, John? Thank you for jumping on the podcast, man. I know, like I said, we met through a crazy app called Clubhouse like a few years ago. I think that was 2020, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been.
Yeah, well,
Was
it
that?
seems
Yeah.
like forever ago now, right?
Right, exactly. So, really glad we connected. I reached out to you. I know you're really heavy on Twitter. You're constantly posting awesome stuff, and so just reached out to you and wanted to talk to you about the app we built. Wanted to see how you're doing. So here we are. We made it to a podcast, my man.
Love it. Yeah, I'm glad that you reached back out and that we made this happen on a more modern platform. I guess I don't know. Is podcasting probably not as modern as Clubhouse, but
You know,
definitely more lasting. Let's put it that way.
Right. I keep hearing about podcasting's been around for 20 plus years and it didn't have the actual name, and now it has a name, and I think we can solidify that it is a little bit more of a modern platform now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here today. We
Yeah,
can
man, I'm
talk to
glad
you.
to have you. So, I want to kind of give you the floor a little bit to introduce yourself, what you do. You
Mhm.
run an agency, do a bunch of different things. So,
Yeah.
go ahead and just kind of give a little bit of an introduction, and then we can riff off of that.
Sure. So, founder and CEO of The Good. We are a conversion optimization firm. We help mostly e commerce brands to convert more of their visitors into customers. We do that through data science, right? So, helping brands to track every click and movement that's happening on their site, understand where people are dropping off in the funnel and why, and then designing hypotheses to and tests ultimately to resolve those challenges, understand again via data what will convert the best. So I've been doing this for 14 almost 15 years now. It's been quite the ride. Love every minute of it. Wouldn't change a thing, but yeah, I'm shocked that I'm still doing this 14 years later. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, man, props to you. You and I had a conversation about the service world and
Yeah.
working with clients and all that stuff. So I just want to give you major props for sticking it out as long as you have. And I'm sure you've seen. I can only imagine the type of changes that you've seen. I mean, I've
Oof.
been in e-commerce since 2012, and that's barely going on 10 years. And you're, 5 years ahead of that. So,
Mhm.
so I want to ask you, how big is the good right now? Are you guys growing
Mhm.
pretty quickly?
We grew a lot during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, e-commerce grew. We rode
Right.
that wave. For a decade prior to COVID, if you will,
Yeah.
uh, you know, we intentionally were rather small. Around tennis or so was always where we really kept things. We wanted to work with a limited number of clients and work with bigger clients. So, Nike, Xerox, Adobe, The Economist, enterprise brands, right? And a lot more as well. But we would work with fewer clients and do larger engagements. And then in COVID, there was just this big opportunity for, not small brands, but mid-sized brands to kind of
Mm-hmm.
creep into that. And yeah, everybody was looking for optimization at that point because so many brands were really focusing on e-commerce for the first time, sadly. And they found us because we've been doing this for so long. We put out so much content that they started looking around, and we were on the short list of what they would find. So
That's amazing.
I was fortunate, and so we've been riding that wave, and there's no signs. I mean, we're recording this after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and uh, you know, no signs of slowing down. I think there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter about
Yeah.
whether or not things are slowing down. There's been some false starts on people saying, yes, it's all slowing down, it's coming crashing down. Oh, wait, never mind, the data changed, or like psych, just kidding. But I think everyone's found that despite possible economic issues, that I'm not even really convinced they're here 100%. We're talking
Right.
ourselves into a lot of it, I think. Um, and consumer spending hasn't slowed down, is what we saw across our client base. So, um,
Yeah, I see record numbers every single year. It's like a record again, record again. So
mhm.
I like what you said there. We talk ourselves into that. I think that's absolutely the sentiment that I shared. I just haven't been able to put that into words.
Yeah.
The real estate markets, the e-commerce stuff, and everything it seems to be. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like you put it all on the table, and people are still spending money, whether they have it or they don't have it. They're still spending money, and
Yeah.
it's a little scary at the same time, but that's what it is. And yeah, and I'd love to kind of so how many people are you? I don't know if I caught that, but how many people are you guys
Oh,
at the
no.
good right now?
Yeah, we're around 20 at this point. So we've pretty much doubled in size over the last 2 years. We are on track to do that again this upcoming year. So pretty good growth at this point.
Nice, man. Nice. That's awesome. And are you guys 100% remote, or you guys have an office somewhere?
We have an office. I'm sitting in our technically our headquarters in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
I've got over 3,000 square foot all to myself. So
Whoa. Okay.
so we had an office. We're in the deep end of our lease. It will be up pretty soon, but I'm not going to renew it. There's no
Right.
reason. What we're actually doing is taking that budget from a lease and throwing it into an account that then twice a year we're going to take everybody on a big trip and just get some FaceTime with everybody together at that point.
That's amazing.
So we figure that's a better use of the money. Um, we don't need to cut the office from a cost savings perspective. It's in fact, it probably will cost us a little more by the time I build out a recording studio or someplace else or whatever. In fact, I'm actively trying to build an ADU on my property so that we can turn it into a video and podcasting studio for everybody to come in and do whatever they want to do for those who are in Portland. But we since COVID started, we have not hired one person in Portland.
Oh, wow.
Everyone has been remote or offshore to some degree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's been great
That's
to
amazing.
to
That's
just access
amazing.
talent from anywhere, right?
Exactly. And how many people are in Portland actually from your team?
Oh, I'd have to count now.
Like a
We've had a
handful,
couple
maybe?
have moved. We've had a couple have moved as well, still work with us, but I think probably 5 or 6 at this point.
Perfect. Perfect.
So yeah.
That that's awesome, man. So you said something earlier that working with the bigger brands, they see your guys' content and different things. So
Hmm.
um, from speaking from my personal experience, I've been running my agency for 5 years. I don't think we invested heavily into content till about probably year two and two and a
Hmm.
half, something like that. And then right around 2019, and then we just saw the SEO kicks in, all the stuff kicks in,
Yeah.
and it just you start getting a lot of that organic traffic. What sort of content are you guys mainly? I mean, I know you yourself are doing a lot of stuff on Twitter and
Hmm.
that sort of stuff. I know you said you do like basically one podcast a week at this point, roughly.
Yeah.
So, what type of content is kind of driving a lot of that traffic? Is it a lot of your blog content? Is it a lot of the stuff that
Yeah.
you're doing yourself, or is it a
Well,
mixture? I'm guessing.
again, we've been doing content for 14 years. It was something where we really, in the early days, we were like, well, we should probably show our expertise.
Hmm.
That we're brand new. We should show that we know what we're talking about. Let's write. So
Right.
we would start by writing a couple thousand words a week, and we did written content for actually we've done about 2,000 words a week over that entire lifespan, consistently every week for at least 10 years now. And so it's made a huge difference. And we're actually at the point where we're going back and we're editing articles that we've written 5, 6 years ago or longer and updating that content. So adding new stats and figures that are more relevant, revising it, adding to that content. So refreshing content is where
Hmm.
we're at for written content. Um, I will say though, and I'll answer your question more directly, but I'll
Yeah.
also say that the reality is that this is not the fast game. This is the long play.
Hmm.
So, agency owners always try to write a bunch of content, get it up, and then just expect their business to turn around overnight. And it does not work like that. This is a compounding effect play that you need to put into motion and be almost religious about doing it and focusing on it. And one lesson I learned early on was we needed a role that did nothing but shepherd content through our team and help pull those insights out of people and show our expertise. And it's not that we're writing because we're experts. Often we're writing to become the expert,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So if you look at it in that way, you can share your learnings, but at the same time, you can learn a lot. And so whenever our team is like, hey, do we have any good resources on, a specific topic? It's like, well, let's go check the site. What do we got? So send them to thegood.com/insights. We have a nice search engine we've put together on there, and they go and they find different stuff that's relevant. And then they're like, I still have unanswered questions. I'm like, great, go do the research, update the articles,
Yep.
right? And let's put that research on there. And now we have this encyclopedia essentially of conversion optimization up there. That's just ridiculous how much is up there, and it's super. Our team utilizes it, but I feel like it's still underutilized by e-com site managers. A lot of folks read our current stuff that we put out every week. They're on our email list, or they go to our site once a week to read it, see it through social channels, but they don't utilize the back catalog. And I think that's where the value is. That's certainly what Google feels like the value is. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
So in addition to all of that written content we've been doing forever, podcasting has been a big one you mentioned. I started doing a lot more podcasting probably 4 years ago now. So a little bit before, about a year before COVID maybe. And I just went on an all out spree with that. At the time I hired a booking agency, and they were getting me on. It was like I could have done a show every day if I wanted.
Wow.
So really just decided to dial it back to really qualify who I was talking to, because there's so many podcasts,
Yeah.
and you can talk to, them all, and nobody listens.
Absolutely.
So, but I do think that there's really this, it's kind of like a comedian, where a comedian to get started has to work that dingy smoke-filled bar that nobody's listening. They're all at the bar talking to everyone else, and like maybe one person's like, yeah, okay, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm telling my jokes to nobody here, right?
Yeah.
And then you keep working your way up, and you start getting on a couple of shows that might have 100 listeners, or
Right.
and then you get to the thousands, and then you just keep going up from there. And you have one or two that really just pop, and then those get you can reference those, and those get you on all the other shows you want to be on.
Right.
And so once that steam starts gaining, it's pretty easy to do at least one a week that is decent. And that's really been valuable for the
Yeah.
connections as well.
Yeah. Especially if
But
they're video as well, where people get to
mhm.
see you and it's not just some voice in the background type of thing.
Well, and that's where the real value in podcasting is. It's the repurposing of that content.
Exactly.
So I have a podcast that I co-host with a traffic generation agency. So a VP at a large traffic agency, and he and I we never have guests. He interviews me one week, the next week I interview him. And so we each bring a topic, and we just say, what do you want to talk about this week? And it's a great content generation for us. I don't
Yeah.
care if anybody listens to that, because it produces an article because I take that and we hand it off to one of our team members, and they write the article based off of what I was interviewed on.
Right.
And then we have we have a video editor who will just break that down into a whole bunch of clips that I can share. And then, of course, we have the audio content. We have the transcription of the entire episode.
Yep.
All of that is content that gets out there and people can find, and Google sees, etc. So it's really, how do we get smart about that content now?
Right.
And
Right.
that's where we've ended up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been one big thing for me and growing this podcast. So I started in 2020,
Hmm.
kind of ran out of bandwidth, and truthfully, I was like, this is just a lot of things to manage. I mean, you take one
Yeah.
big video, now you got to cut it up. I just didn't have the bandwidth, so I said, you know what,
Hmm.
let me put this all on hold. Um, Kind of got back into the working side of things, the agency, all this, and then 2021, middle 2021, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to get back on this wagon. But then I waited until the beginning of 2022 just because of the whole, we just got really busy. And again, it was a bandwidth thing. And I really wanted to make sure
Hmm.
that I had somebody, like you said, you have a video editor, to make sure that this content actually gets repurposed the right way, because recording a lot of it is great and you get it out there. But if you're not consistently pushing it out
Yeah.
there, or like you said, repurposing the transcripts and everything like that, you
Hmm.
really start to lose some of that steam, and you're actually putting in a lot more work than you're getting out of it in the long term. And
I agree.
I think that's where a lot of podcasters also get burned out. And you said something along the lines of, a comedian in that smoky little, like, dingy
Hmm.
bar or whatever. Everyone needs a starting point, but I think a lot of the times, in order to continue moving, because I think the stats, some crazy stat is like most podcasts don't make it past like the 12th episode or something like
Right.
that, which is
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why that would make sense, because I got to the 12th episode on my first one, and I just was like, okay, I need to tap out from this for a
Hmm.
while. But once you have that, the little bit of that infrastructure, it doesn't require a lot. You hire a contractor, hire somebody to say, hey, take this video, make them, put
Hmm.
some branding around it, put some, fun stuff around it. And it really works. I mean, we now repurpose across, obviously, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, the long video goes on YouTube, then we do
Hmm.
TikTok, then we do, a Twitter, and Facebook, like all of these channels, that just all gets pushed out. And my whole goal is, like, you never know who's listening. It's same as thing as you said, in that little bar, there might be that one person in the background that's just listening
Yeah.
and being like, hey, I like what he said, and then they become, kind of a fan of what you're doing, and then they reach, it's so, you never know. But I think definitely having that foundation of being able to repurpose that content, and pushing it out there is extremely crucial, especially for podcasts.
And like you said, it's so easy now to find people to help you. There's a whole industry around content repurposing.
Exactly.
And it's not, I mean, there's an investment level, but it's probably less than what you would think.
Yeah.
You can spend 5K per month and really blow it up, or you could spend 1,000 and still make good, meaningful, progress towards your goal there. So yeah, but I think so we've done a lot of written. The podcasts have been huge. Video, we've done a lot of video stuff, um, and that's really all that we've done for content outside of writing books. So I've written a couple of books. That has been kind of the really the penultimate. It's been really where we have all of this great thinking, and how do we get that into something that's a little more organized? I mentioned that I feel like the back catalog, the encyclopedia of all these are really focused articles, don't get utilized as much as I'd like to see. Um, a book is where a lot of that thinking can compound and combine into something that really is will get read. And we did the first book a number of years ago. It was successful. Really enjoyed doing it. And then COVID hit, and I said, okay, how do I come out of COVID with something I'm proud of,
Hmm.
instead of just sitting on my hands for until this is over? At the time, I
Right.
was like, I didn't know. And I said, what could I look back at and say I utilized this time effectively? And I decided I was going to write another book. And it was something that didn't require other people necessarily to be in my you know pod, if you will.
Right. Right.
It also didn't require me to be on video. It just required me to heads down, and I had the time. That's the hard thing I think a lot of people run into with this content, is getting the couple hours a day needed. Like we talked a little bit about Twitter. Man, I'll tell you what, like, you could spend 5 hours a day on Twitter and still never grow over 10,000 followers.
Exactly.
Um, it's just, you have to just have a stroke of luck that something that you said takes off, and then you get a bunch of followers, and then it just starts to compound from there. But, you know, it's
And it's
really
beautiful
something.
once it does. It's beautiful
Mhm.
because the conversation is real time, so you get to actually
Yeah.
see everything happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it is great. But it's also, you could sink a lot of effort into that and not get a lot out.
Yeah.
And so I try to limit myself on there to like an hour a day, roughly. And that is, I'll do a half hour of replying, posting, and then I'll do a half hour of just interacting with people that,
Mhm.
just go through my feed, have a couple of lists set up, etc., and just try to connect with people. Um, but and provide value, right? Not just,
Yeah.
hop in. It's like, hey, here's something we've written about this, or here, like trying to add value to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you doing anything on LinkedIn by any chance in terms of content?
I think LinkedIn is the next big platform. Quite honestly, I think it's been trending that way for a while. I
I've
repo.
seen, by the way, I've seen
Mhm.
enormous growth on
Yeah,
LinkedIn. I went from, I think, 300 followers in April or something to like 3,000 now.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I think I have 2 or 3 times the followers on LinkedIn than I do on Twitter.
Yeah,
And I put less effort into LinkedIn. And it's actually been a strategy conversation amongst the team here. Do we flip that? And I spend 15 minutes a day on Twitter and 45 on LinkedIn, right? And how what I have been doing on there is I take all of my content and that I write on Twitter and I use it on LinkedIn. That
exactly.
has gone well. Um, I tend to schedule my writing on one, like a chunk. I'll take like 2 hours and do a lot of that. So I'll schedule out the rest of the week. I
Right.
try to write two tweets, 2 posts a day for a week. So that's 10 that I really need to, like, every working day. So it's 10 posts that I need to be able to crank out, which is a low number. But on LinkedIn, you really only need one a day at most, because
Exactly.
most people aren't on LinkedIn more than once a day, right? They check into
Exactly.
it and read their messages, which is almost all spam, and then move on. Um,
The messaging
so
thing is
it's,
wild on there, how much spam there.
I mean, how they have not resolved that, I don't know. Like, it's
Yeah.
eventually it's going to be the death of them, um, or it's just going to continue to be a joke, because that's really what that
Right,
is right
right,
now.
right. No, no,
It's quite sad.
it's absolutely crazy. But yeah, no, LinkedIn has been an interesting game. The way I looked at it, I saw who was oh, it was Harley actually from Shopify, the president, and
Mm-hmm.
he said something about his LinkedIn growth has been just absolutely astronomical, and I said it's
Hmm.
because people are allowed to have LinkedIn open or feel like they're allowed to have LinkedIn open at
Hmm.
work. And now everyone's moving Twitter content over to LinkedIn. So they're basically reading Twitter through a LinkedIn. Like it's like
Yeah,
almost an embedded version of, of
yeah.
Twitter inside of LinkedIn. And so,
You're right. You're
and he
100%.
even
That's
responded,
exactly what I've been doing.
yeah, exactly. And he even responded back. He's like, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I was like, yeah, man, people don't feel guilty opening up Twitter. Like they feel like they can only do that on their phone and they're just quickly scrolling if anything catches their eye. But on
Hmm.
LinkedIn, they can actually sit there and potentially involve themselves in conversations and do a bunch of other stuff too.
Well, and let's be honest, the people that you and I want to reach are going to be on LinkedIn, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if we want to sell B2B services or B2B products,
Hmm.
like, it's got to be on LinkedIn. Twitter, I will say Twitter has driven some new business for us, but the effort has been more about the community
Yeah,
than anything else. I'm speaking to other people that are in the community, not necessarily potential clients. What I mean by in the
exactly.
community, it's a lot of experts around e-commerce, and we all have our niches. It's a lot of agency owners, things of that sort, but it's not necessarily a lot of, let's just call them e-com manager, VP of e-com, those type of roles. I don't know if they just don't have time on to be on Twitter, but like, this in
Right.
sheer volume, those people are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's probably why that performs so much better.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you really quickly about some of the clients and things that you guys are doing,
Mhm.
and where
Yeah.
I know you said you guys had some pretty good growth, through COVID and stuff like that. Have you guys done any any like unique outreach that you would say, or
Mm.
is it a lot of like inbound stuff coming your way?
I will say that we have done almost zero outbound. If it's
Nice.
99 to 1, let's put it that way.
Right.
The play has been the content play. And that has really gotten us to where we are today. It's that slow burn of something that really compounded as we continue to add more content.
Yeah.
Now, where we are headed in this coming year and what we have plans for is to do more, I'd say, account-based marketing. So
Okay.
continue that content, but layer on sharing that content with some people directly that we're interested in working with.
Ah, I see.
And
I see.
reaching out, having them be aware that we exist. Maybe they weren't prior, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer that I'm never going to convince somebody that they have a conversion challenge.
Right.
If you have a conversion challenge, if your conversion rate's not great, if you're in the role that we want to talk to that would hire us. Okay. So I'm never going to call somebody up and cold call and be like, hey, so how's that conversion rate of yours? If they know it's a problem, they're already working on solving it, right?
Right.
And they're
Right.
doing
Right.
that
Right.
research when they're like, oh yeah, this is a problem, they start doing that research. So the window for me to possibly catch them in that cold call is so small, it's like not even worth my
So
time trying,
small. Yeah.
right?
That's a
so
great way of putting it, man. That's a great way of putting it.
so I just don't see the value in that, right? So the account-based marketing plan really for us is let's share our content with people that we
Mm-hmm.
would eventually like to work with. And it's going to be a small list, but we're just going to be like, hey, here's some content, here's some feedback on your site, or a nugget that, hey, we saw this error you should know about, or hey, I was buying something off your site and this didn't work, and I can imagine that's a challenge for a lot of people. You might want to look into that, right? And so it's like trying to be a little bit helpful and reaching out. um, I find that flattery goes a long way.
Yep.
So, I reach out to a lot of companies when I use their product and I'm like, you know what, I could actually probably work with them. They could probably use some help with ecom. I'll just reach out and message the CEO and be like, hey, you know what? Like, I love your product. Thank you for sharing it with us, with the world. And, you know what? If it can ever be of help, just let me know. And I get more responses to that because it's a human touch. It's not asking for anything. I'm not saying, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time, or let's schedule a
Right.
meeting, or
Right.
insert, whatever LinkedIn spam here.
Right.
It's really more just me being a human and just appreciating what they're doing, and making, in the exchange for that is them now being aware that the good and I exist. And that's really
Exactly.
the benefit there. So.
It's I think everything, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about as well, is stuff I've been thinking about. The things that don't scale always work really, really well, right? Like
Yeah.
that flattery. I mean, they can also go in and look at your name, whether it's on LinkedIn or
Mhm.
your email, and say like, did he actually purchase something? And when they do, it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, well, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So there's a level of that actual connection rather than how many times I'm sure you get cold emails be like, hey, we
Yeah.
love what you do. And it's just insert,
Yeah.
insert, insert. And it's like, dude, this has nothing to do with my business. It's like, this is
Well,
crazy. So,
the one I was getting last week was, and I got like, I don't know, some script somebody put together, and they hit me up like 3 or 4 times. And it was like, "Hey, where did you get that fit that you're wearing on Instagram? I really liked it." And I was like, "Okay, first of all, my Instagram's private. Second of all, there's no pictures of me in on my Instagram. So like, I don't know who you were looking at, but it wasn't me, right? It's just like, come on, this is obviously fake. Like,
yeah,
let's just move on.
cut the
So it's stuff like
BS.
that that really bothers me. I mean,
Y-
I don't understand how people try to do that, or like the link, the Twitter DM campaigns. It's like,
oh, man.
come at me with something personal. Don't
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah.
put some effort
I
to
agree
it,
with
and
you.
then we'll see what happens. The rest of it's just small boy stuff, quite honestly.
Ex-
So,
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing too, right? Because we're doing on our app side, we're doing obviously B2B stuff. And reaching out to people is one of the things on Twitter that's been extremely effective. Actually, just
Mm-hmm.
writing up a message and making it very personal, and even if you're not a customer, just be like, "Hey, man, I ran across your site through so and so. Here's the tweet that I saw. I just wanted to
Yeah.
let you know. Here's what we're doing. We feel like you'd be a good fit for the app if you like it. Here's
Mm-hmm.
a longer trial period. Here's this. Here's that, and
Yep.
no worries." And I even found out, like, dropping like your personal like number or something, just being like, "Hey, shoot me a text, like make it very
Mm-hmm.
personal," because I'm not going to send that number out to 500 people tomorrow, but it's more like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is just to let you know this is not a BS thing. It's not a." And if you type it
Mm-hmm.
in, if you're on iMessage, you'll see that it's an actual number. It's not some
Right. Yeah.
a call center or something like that. So I think a lot of that is going back to that, and I feel like there's a play here for an agency to be like, we do the things that don't scale, and we'll do them the right way, type
Mm-hmm.
of thing, that somebody could really really push the service world into a different place and make it
Yeah.
very very personal. And yeah, I always think about that, because yeah, I always put myself in the shoes of the other person that I'm reaching out to. It's like, what's going to make me tick, what's going to make me feel like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this person reached out. And then I go back to some of the stuff that people reach out to me, and then what caught my eye, and I just go, oh wow, okay, I really like that. You got my attention. What can I do for you, type of thing. And so it's an interesting game to play, man. It's a very interesting game to play. But yeah, I think Twitter for the most part has been extremely effective with a lot of the B2B stuff, in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
brands and the stuff that we're working on. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that there's a lot of new business to be had on Twitter. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
But I think that I've just found that it's easier for me to communicate value on Twitter and try to share value. And that's, yeah,
right,
I don't know. Maybe I haven't contributed enough value yet to feel comfortable doing some asks on there.
right.
But eventually I think, we'll get to that point. But
My rule of thumb on Twitter is, 99% of the time you're giving value, and the 1% you ask, it's okay to ask, type of thing.
yeah.
No matter how many followers or whatever you have. How long have you been, kind of heavy on Twitter? Has it been a few
Mm.
years, or it's been a long
Yeah,
time,
it's
or?
been, well, probably this year. So
Okay,
last 10 months or so that I really dove back in. Um,
okay,
Actually, it's probably been just over a year because my last book launched in October of last year, October, November of last year. And I really started getting heavy into Twitter in preparation for that. So I was doing a lot with it probably September of last year. So about a month or two before it launched, I really got into it. So it's been, I guess, just over a year now. I mean, time flies. But I've been on Twitter since early days. Like, I think I created my account in 2008, 2009,
that's
something
where
like
I'm
that.
at too.
So yeah, but I didn't really put a whole lot of effort into it.
Yeah,
But I was there back in the day, liked it. Now, I'm on it much more. So
yeah,
I actually, about a year ago when I got back into it, I actually just went through and deleted every single tweet I had in there and just was like, I'm just gonna start fresh.
exactly.
So
That's exactly
kept my
what I
account
did
but
too.
started
That's so
over.
funny. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I
why
did.
not?
Uh, what I was going to ask you is, the book side of things. Did you guys self-publish that, or did you go through a publisher?
Yeah, so I worked with a publisher. I wish I hadn't, quite honestly.
Really?
I don't think there's any reason to work with a publisher. The challenge is that industry moves so slow
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it was really frustrating for me because I'm used to moving much faster. So, for instance, I would you know be waiting 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get a book cover design from them. And
Oh
in
wow.
that time, I would hire a designer and have 5 options and send them to them and be like, will any of these work? And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
our designer's still working on something. We'll let you know. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm ready. Let's choose one and move on. I don't care what your designer does.
Oh
Um,
man.
so there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Like the illustrations, they came back with illustrations that I was not enthralled with. So I said, I'm going to do my own. So I hired a designer that I liked, illustrator, and had them create illustrations. Um, there were things like that. They did a light editing, copy editing at the end, but I had my own editor go through everything before I even submitted it. And they actually were impressed. They're like, wow, this is like the cleanest, best manuscript we've seen. And I was like, yeah, because I paid an editor that I like and I work with to like help me edit it. So, um, I basically did your job for you. But like, this is
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying. Like,
right.
and then promotion wise, they're not, I mean, it's really not that helpful, because they're expecting you to do a lot of the legwork for the promotion anyways, which is right. You need to as the author. So all in all, I would say if I wrote a book again, 100% self-publish. There's no reason not to. You can get all the same access. The only thing that might hurt you is you won't be at the airport in like on a book stand. But let's be honest, any book I write is probably not going to end up there anyways. I'm okay with that.
Right,
My ego's
right.
not so fragile that I need to see it at an airport, or that I think I'm going to sell so many copies or be that interesting that it's going to end up there anyways. So with that in mind, I just don't see the need.
Yeah. Are you planning on doing another one?
I think I will. Maybe I'd co-author another one, to
Okay.
carry some of the load. I'd like to do that with some of my team members, and just to help them. I think the first time to help them ease into writing a book, especially since now feel like I know how to do all of that process that a lot of
Right.
people get hung up in. Um, I think I could share that with the team and make it a lot easier for everyone. So looking at it that way, I think I'd co-author, but I don't know that I have it in me to sit down and spend the months writing another book just yet. Probably need another year before I'll be like, you know what? I forget what that was like. It's kind of like having a kid, right? You're like,
Yeah, yeah.
you have a kid and you're like, okay, a year goes by and you're like, man, that baby was cute. I only remember the good stuff. I don't remember not sleeping at all and, just being a zombie for 6 months. Like I forgot all about that. It's been, let's have another baby. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of that it feels like that right now for me. It's like, man, that was a lot of work. I'm still a little scarred from it. I
Right,
wanted it to
right.
be as good as it could be. Um, and I know what that takes. And so I
Absolutely.
think I'll wait to do that again.
Yeah. And what was and what so explain to me the first book versus the second book. What was there a complete
Mhm.
topic change, or was it still kind of the same
Well,
topic?
they're both optimization
Okay.
topics. The first book was called "Stop Selling." Excuse me, "Stop Marketing, Start Selling." And the
Okay.
whole thesis of the book is that when somebody reaches your site, they're there to um, solve their own pain or need. And too many brands continue to market to people once they're on their site.
Right.
And you need to stop marketing once somebody gets to your site and stops and start selling. And so the idea behind that was um, it was a very tactical book. It was very much
Okay.
like, here's ways to understand what people want out of your site. Here's how to do user testing. Here's, all the things you should be thinking about with optimization. So it was much more tactical, but it was also like writing a thesis paper for me.
Okay.
With the first book, it was very much like, I'm going to do a bunch of research, learn a ton. Remember, I said earlier that writing, is to teach other people, but you learn a lot in the process. That was really how I looked at that book. How can I basically write a thesis? So coming out of this, I truly believe and feel I'm an expert, and that
Yeah.
was the goal. Um, the latest book was called Opting Into Optimization. The idea behind that book is it's much more theory. So, what are the key principles that you need to know about when it comes to optimization? So, if you are an e-commerce manager or owner of an e-com site or whatever, what are the core tenets? What are the laws of optimization that you should be understanding and following? And that was a very different type of writing style for me. Um, it's not chock full of best practices or anything of that sort. It's really just, here's the mindset you need to have. And I broke it down into basically 9 laws, and each of those is a chapter.
Okay. Nice. Nice. That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And so in terms of like sales and stuff, which one
Mhm.
did you go through publisher for both of them, I'm assuming then?
Yeah. So for both of them, we used a service to help publish. The first one was more self-published, I would say. We used somebody to help kind of get the ISBN, do all of that stuff. And really it was because we didn't have the clout that we have now, to where
Right.
now it was easier to call up a publisher and be like, hey, I want to write a book, and have them help out. So now it was, and having done it before, right? So being able to say, hey, here's another book that I already wrote, and send them that, and they were, at that point, like, okay, so what it takes, you will finish this book, right? I think that's the number
Right.
one
Right.
thing they told me, is that most people they work with that are business owners and want to write a book never finish it, and
Right.
they end up investing all this time and effort but not getting the end product out of it. And so I think they felt pretty good that I would be able to finish it. I knew what that took. So
And how did those, if I may ask you, you can share whatever you'd like. How did those
mhm.
book deals usually work when you're, in the position you are? You did a lot of the
Yeah.
creative, you did a lot of the editing and all that stuff. Is this something you
Yeah.
go to a publisher and you say, "Hey, I have this book. It's, let's call it
Hmm.
90, 95% done." They
Yeah.
write you maybe a check up front of some sort, or is it like a royalty
Hmm.
based thing, or how does that whole like thing work? Because I'm not familiar
Yeah.
with it, and I'd love to know what that looks like for
Yeah.
somebody that's
So
not a famous like
the
like
yeah,
actor
the
or whatever
reality
else it is.
is, on any business book that is going to be written, I mean, 1% of those books will really make money from book sales.
Right,
So
right.
for me, I didn't go into this under the impression that I was going to make a lot of money writing a book. That was not my
Right.
goal. And my goal was, I'm going to have a new business card or something I can share with people that
Mhm.
shows that I know what I'm talking about, will get me up on stage, right? So now I have, because
Yeah.
I've written a book, I've got 3 or 4 talks that are derivatives of that book that I've done.
Yep.
And during COVID, I did almost all of them online, but that was fine. Virtual,
Yeah.
those digital presentations were great. Um, I've done a couple of in-person speaking events around the book. But the book is really, it's almost like the calling card that gets you other things.
Yep.
So,
They say write
now
a book
we,
and get a speaking engagement.
right, exactly. That's the goal. I don't think the goal is to make money off the book. So the economics I wasn't too concerned about. Now,
Right.
what I will say is that I ended up probably spending more money than I made off the initial working with a publisher. In fact, I know I did. I spent more than
Yeah.
I got back out of it, quite a bit more. But I did that
Right.
intentionally. I looked at it as an investment. So
Mhm.
really, what that turned out to be was working with somebody who could, supposedly help me get through the process and shepherd me through that process. But as I said, I was getting so frustrated that I ended up doing most of that myself, just to
Right,
keep it
right.
moving much quicker. Um, so the reality is that, in the end, it cost me a lot of money to do the book. But in this year since, we've sold enough copies that it's paid for itself,
Oh,
which
good. Good.
ultimately is a better outcome than I could have hoped for. So by selling the books, we've been able to, on Amazon, other places, but also off of our own site. We sell direct to consumer off thegood.com. So with that, we sell an ebook. I mean, that's 100% margin for us, really.
Right, right.
Right. So you look at it that way. What this has enabled me to do is have multiple printings of the book, and every printing put some aside for sales and send some to Amazon's warehouse so that they have them and they can ship them Prime. And then
Mhm.
in addition to that, to hold some back that I send out for free all over the place, and or go to a speaking engagement and take a box with me and then say, okay, anybody who has a question after my talks, then I'll give a book to, right?
Nice.
Something of that sort. So get engagement from the audience, right? Um, or just hand them out at the conference. Like, first conference I went to post COVID, I stuffed my backpack full of books and just walked
Yep.
around and was like, would go up to different booths and just be like, "Hey, is so and so here?" And they're like, "No." It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, do are they at the conference? And they're like, oh no, but I know where they sit back at headquarters. I'll be back there. I'll see them. Great. I sign a book to them, and I put a personal little note in there, just one sentence, and they say, hey, would you mind giving this to them when you get back there? And I slide my business card
Nice.
in it. And then, they end up getting that. And it's a form of account-based marketing, really, at that point, right?
Right,
Because I'm
right,
getting
right.
in front of people that I want to meet. So there's a lot that you can do with it that I think most people just think I'm going to sell it and make money. And that's really just not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the sentiment that a lot of people share who do write that, write their book first or second or whatever else it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more of a, like I said, you write a book to get speaking engagements, get in front of
Yeah.
people, drive business in a different sense. This is just like a gateway to that thing. And if you make some
Mm-hmm.
money off of it, great. I mean, where do you most of your books actually sell? Is it all like majority through the website and Amazon, or is it like
Yeah.
anywhere else that surprised you, really?
Um, what surprised me was actually how many sell on Amazon.
Right,
So that was most surprising to me. I thought, because people have to be looking for your book on Amazon to find it,
right,
right? So that was humbling, really, to see that. I would say I know how many get sold on the different channels, and now it's probably shifted more to thegood.com than Amazon. I think Amazon, we sell a handful of copies a week. I'm not really making a lot off of that.
right.
We sell way more off of our website. Usually what I'll do is, let's see, last no 2 weeks ago, I spoke at a virtual event, a live event, and I gave out a discount code for 50% off the book. I was just like, hey, for attending, here's half off the book. If you want to order it off thegood.com, go put that coupon code in, and for being on this event, you get half off. And we sold probably 40, 50 copies,
Okay,
from that talk. So yeah, again, it was not gonna make us rich, but it definitely
right.
is easily paying for itself, and
Absolutely.
allowing me to do other things with it. So
That's amazing. That's amazing.
yeah.
So, let me get back to kind of the we talked about Black Friday stuff and all this.
Mm.
What's some of the craziest things you've been seeing with like conversions? And I know you and I talked about all these pop ups people are doing, and like
Yeah.
emails. Like you get to a website and you don't even get to look at the product yet, and it just pops you up with an email. Give me your email. Give me your phone number, and all
Hmm.
this other crap. What's been kind of on your guys' end? What's been sort of the focus, and what have you guys been like optimizing for really this time around?
Well, I will say that our optimizations that we do for our clients are really custom to what their customers are looking for, right? So there isn't a one size fits all optimization
Right.
plan that we put out there. So that really differs from brand to brand. We've seen brands that are still having supply chain issues all the way
Hmm.
through brands that are just frankly discounting way too much. I
Right.
think that's the biggest challenge I see from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, is everybody feels like you have to do a massive discount, and it's the one time a year that I would probably make a bit of an exception and say it's okay to do some discounting, but don't the mistake that gets made is so many brands will look at that 1 week, 2 week period
Yeah.
and say, man, we ran a discount and that got a lot of people to buy. Um, and then they try to deploy that same tactic throughout the rest of the year. And the problem is that brands just devalue themselves. They devalue the brand doing that.
Yep.
They end up having a lot of challenges around um, creating consumers who will only buy if there is a discount. Now, consumers during Black Friday, Cyber Monday know if I'm going to get a discount, now's the time of year I'm going to do that. And that's their mentality. So if you don't have something special happening, you probably wouldn't be able to buy at that point, right? You're not going to convert. But so you need to do something. But I encourage brands to not be thinking that way through the rest of the year. I encourage them to really be thinking about adding something instead of subtracting. So think of it, instead of taking a dollar or a percentage off as a discount, add something, add free shipping, add a free gift with purchase, add, some value in there instead of subtracting. And you'll see that that performs a lot better over the long term.
Absolutely. And I was just making a joke with my friend actually the other day. I was like, I hope that next year we're trying to launch an incense brand,
Okay.
probably by February or March or something like that, all subscription based. And I said, if we can get that off the ground, it's about 80% done now, but if we
Hmm.
can get that off the ground in time and get some, traction and all this other stuff, we're raising our prices during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We're going to go up with prices. We're going to go against the grain on this one because I feel you on that. I think devalue is the perfect word when it comes to, like, especially when you're building a brand. There's a lot of amazing D2C brands now that are
Hmm.
have really great products and offer a lot of value, and their products don't require you to buy it every 6 months or a year. They
Yeah.
last for a long time. It's like you don't really need to give 50% off. Like, you don't need to
Yeah.
do that. Like, you're just it's like people are chasing that dopamine, John. That's what I feel like. People are
Yeah.
chasing that dopamine rush.
I would agree with that. And I think that the challenge is just that, um, you're going to be on this hamster wheel that's impossible to get off. And
Right.
you're just teaching consumers that your products aren't worth what you're charging, they're worth that discounted price. And so
Exactly.
you end up just having these limited options. And I'm honestly of the thought that discounting is just lazy. It's the
It
lazy way to
is.
get sales. And I tell brands this all the time. It's like, if you want to increase your conversions overnight, just discount dramatically. Just say everything's 100% off. I guarantee
Right.
you'll have a massive conversion rate, right? But it's not feasible, right? So think
Yeah.
about it that way. Like, what are you doing? You can't run that sale forever. You're hurting your margins. Discounting, it's not optimization, it's margin drain. And
Yep.
that's really the challenge that people need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Hey, is there anything out there that you saw with any D2C brands? Maybe it doesn't have to be necessarily
Mm.
maybe your client, that you were like, oh, that is actually a really clever or good, I guess, like, deal, or the way that they approached, the Black Friday, Cyber
Mhm.
Mondays. Did anything stand out to you? Did you see anything?
This year, I think that so many brands were concerned that they weren't going to hit their numbers, that they immediately went to discounting.
Mm,
And which is why we're kind of talking about this now.
yeah.
The What I found was surprising was, that there were still a couple brands who held to their morals and said, you know what, we're not going to have a sale this year. We're just not even open this year. Don't buy from us. Right.
Right.
And I think that seems to have worked pretty well for brands, but as a small brand, you just can't afford to do that.
Right.
Um, I do think that a lot of brands are really showing cash issues right now. If they don't have product market fit, they're going to have big cash issues. Where money has been free the last few years,
Yeah.
they were able to advertise and convert even at a low rate and still be okay because buying traffic was cheaper and money was free. Now, you got to pay a lot more for that money and that traffic. Oof. Like, if you just discount, your margins aren't there at all.
Right.
And that's really where we're seeing, I think, a lot of people get hurt right now. Is it's brands that were artificially um, inflated, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
they were
Bloat.
showing numbers. Yeah, exactly. They were showing numbers because money was free. They weren't showing numbers because they had a really good product or product market fit or knew who they were marketing and advertising to. And I think that's what's going to shake out over the next 6 months. Even is those type of ecom brands that didn't even hit their numbers during this week, or what they did was they way overspent, and
Right.
then they sold it at such low margins that they can't keep in business. I think that's what we're going to start seeing is a real drop off from brands that should have really dropped off for a long time ago, but were inflated by the economic issues.
Yeah. So I have a question. Would you ever consider building a D2C brand under the good and just doing putting all
Mhm.
your tactics in place and really
Yeah.
driving the growth on that?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is we are experts at optimizing sites for conversions. We're not
Hmm.
experts at fulfillment. We're not experts at building products and physical products. We're
Right.
not experts at customer service. We're not experts at email marketing or ads marketing or any of that stuff, driving traffic as a whole, right? So
Right.
a lot of people ask me, well, if you're so good at conversions, why are you not just starting a brand and converting it and optimizing it to convert? And I'm like, well, I could, but there's a lot of other factors there that I'm not good at that I would have to learn. And
Yeah.
the reality is that's takes me away from my focus, which, we are experts at converting visitors into buyers. We're not experts at driving traffic or any of that other stuff that needs to be part of ecom. So
Hmm.
we have one piece of the puzzle. Now we
Right.
happen to be really good at that piece of the puzzle because it's all we do.
Hmm.
And if we branch out and we start offering all these other things or trying to learn all these other things, we're going to end up in that same boat, right?
Right.
Like it's just we're going to water down what we do, and that's not really where I want to play.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Are there any brands that you're excited about that you see out there that you've been really kind of rooting for, that you're product
Mm,
wise, marketing wise, even something that you've seen
yeah.
conversion rate optimization, like stuff that you're like, wow, that's actually really, really good. Have you seen anything out there? Because I feel like there's a new brand popping up every week nowadays.
Oof. Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think that what I really like is getting behind certain founders. Less the actual product or the site, and I
Okay.
really have been trying to just support folks who I feel are hustling and doing it the right way,
Hmm.
instead of trying to take shortcuts.
Right.
So when that comes up, we'll do some angel investments and new products they're coming out with, if they're branching off and starting new brands, things of that sort. I mean, a good example of that is Chris Mead and CrossNet. You may have heard of Chris Mead,
Yeah.
but he just teamed up with Danny Duncan and is doing who's a YouTube personality and doing something called Good Sport together. And so I help Angel invest in that to help that get it off the ground. And it's a whole
Nice.
bunch of backyard games that are a lot of fun. So, it's stuff like that that is really where I prefer to spend my time right now is supporting those. Um, there, like you said, there's a ton of new brands coming up, and a lot of them are the same type of products with a different label,
Right.
quite
Right.
honestly.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
where I'm looking for is a unique product or set of products that have product market fit. And once that happens, it's just a matter of fueling that engine.
Yeah.
But it's hard for that to happen, right? And so, um, while I do follow a lot of brands and pay attention to the community, it's really the founders that I like to get behind. Um,
Nice.
so yeah.
Yeah, no, the CrossNet is doing great stuff. I actually purchased one of their products as well. But yeah, I actually, when I saw their product, I've been really big into pickleball not too long ago. I started like about
Yeah.
a year and a half
Mhm.
ago, and I had branding and everything done. Again, had to put that a little bit on pause, but
Mm.
that's something I really want to go back to, is getting like a really beginner level like pickleball brand up where people could buy
Mhm.
a set of paddles, a couple balls, and just
Yep.
really get going with the sport. Just because I truly just love the sport. Like the sport is
Yeah.
it's such a wide demographic. It can be an easy tailored website. Doesn't need to be super crazy or anything like that.
Mhm.
There's definitely a good but obviously that's also getting really hyped up, and there's, like you said, there's just another another product with this just a different label type of thing, and that's where I think you kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit.
Yeah.
So but that was something about I would say probably 6 to 8 months ago that I saw CrossNet. I was like, man, these guys could easily pivot to like a pickleball or something like that. So
Yeah.
but
Well, they have
yeah,
done some of that under the CrossNet brand, and then the new brand that they're working on as well has some really fun stuff coming out. So
that's
I
awesome.
don't want to spill too much, but I will say that there's a lot of fun stuff coming out from that brand. So it'll be a lot of fun to see it come out.
That's awesome. Well, we're approaching an hour here. Anything else you want to chat about, John? Anything on top of
Wow.
mind? Anything that you want to tap on
I can't believe it's
and
been
just
an
kind of?
hour. That's time flies, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, man, we covered a lot today, but yeah, I guess if any questions come up from anyone listening, always feel free to just email me, Jon at thegood.com. I've given my email address out probably 100 times on podcasts now, and everyone's always respected it. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
we'll make sure to
Um,
put it in the comments as well, just so that people can easily access and
yeah, so it can get
just
screen
go in.
scraped as well. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, no, just let me know if there's any questions on anything we talked about today, and would love to
I
connect.
guess.
Again, the biggest thing out of all this is just the networking for me, right? I love to meet new people, and like you and I met on Clubhouse and have stayed in touch since. It's that those type of connections are what made Clubhouse fun. I think it's not necessarily I don't miss Clubhouse, but I
Right,
feel like
right,
I did
right.
make a lot of good connections on there, so that's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to also ask you, what's the biggest offer you've received for your domain, thegood.com? Because that's a hell of a good domain name,
Ooh.
man.
All right, if we have 2 minutes, I'll tell you the story how I got that
Yeah,
domain. But
please, please.
I've gotten a lot of offers, and I, without even having money attached to them, they're just like, "Are you interested in selling this?" And I just say no. Um,
Right.
so I don't even know. But Okay, so I started the company in 2008, 2009, late 2008, and so we were in a recession, if you will. We're
Right.
having some economic issues, and I found the domain, and we knew we wanted to call the company the good. Our mission is to remove all of the bad online experiences until only the good remain. So we were
Hmm.
like, oh, we want to call the company the good, but thegood.com, it's being parked. Nobody's using it. It was just sitting there. And I'm like, come on,
Wow.
they're not going to use this. Like, I gotta find out. Did some digging. Eventually, found out who owned it. Called his office for the company he owned, and the secretary was like, "Yeah, he's not around." And I was like, "Okay, well, can you tell him I'm interested in this domain name he owns?" And she was kind of like, "Yeah, whatever." Like, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, I'll let
yeah.
him know.
She has no idea that's going on.
Yeah. So I think I called like 4 or 6 more times before the lady got annoyed enough. She was like, "Look, he's out on his yacht, and I don't know when he'll be back, but he checks his email once a week when he docks. I will make sure that he knows to get a hold of you." And I was like, "Thank you. Like, I won't call you again unless I don't hear from him." And she was
Right.
like, "Okay, I get it. Like, I'll make sure you hear from him." So he writes me. He's like, "I hear you've called several times and you're interested in this domain." And he's like, "I want, like, I'll sell it, but I want like 250,000 bucks for it." And I was like,
Oh man.
"Absolutely, there's no way I can afford that." Like, so I wrote him right back, and I was like, "Dude, I can't afford that. There's like, you need some perspective on who I am." And I was like, "I'm just starting this company. I'm not worth anything. Like,
Yeah.
where do you think I'm going to get that kind of money? It's just not happening.
Right.
So like, you're not doing anything with this domain. Let's just have a real conversation about what you'd sell it for." And he writes me back and he's like, "Obviously timing's not right." And he just left it at that. I was like,
Oh
"Okay."
man.
Well, the economy continues to crash, right? And I'm just like, man, this guy's got a yacht. Like, he's probably hurting a little bit, right? Like, I'm sure he's got this business, and it was in like telecom or something like that. And I was like,
Okay.
nobody's buying phone equipment right now. I don't know what this guy's doing. So
You're connecting the dots at this point.
Yeah, so I just keep bugging him. Now I have his email, so I just keep bugging him, and I'm just like, "Hey, look, can I just like, can we? What are you thinking now? Like, have you thought about this anymore?" And he just doesn't respond. I just email him like every 3-4 days, and I'm just
Oh
like,
man.
"Hey, like, come on, like, give me a realistic number." And he finally comes back, and he's like, $10,000. And I wrote back and I was like, dude, I can't afford $10,000, but like I could do maybe 5 if you financed it. And he's like, okay, how about um, how about $7,500 and you pay me $500 a month until it's paid off? And I was like, sold, let's do it. And so I paid like next to
Oh,
nothing for this domain name, and seller financed it for free. And
wow.
I just sent him $500 a month, and then eventually we were doing well enough that I just wanted to stop the payments, and I just sent him a big check and was done.
That's
So,
amazing, man. Thank you for sharing
but
that story. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
but I mean, look, the opportunity. This is where recessions bring opportunity, right? Like
Yep.
you just got to be
They
willing to
say
go get
start a
it.
business when the economy is down.
Yeah,
It's the bear market, man.
it is, and I mean, you'll learn to be thrifty, right? And like
Yeah.
there was no way I was going to spend 50K or 250K or whatever he wanted on this domain. Like, but I
I'll just go
remember when
with
I
the
saw this.
.co at that point. You just go with the
Well, and
.co at that point.
when I saw he came back at 10,000, I was like, I got him. Like he dropped from 50,000 to 10,000. I was like, I got him. Like we're going to come to a deal now. Like 100% we're coming to a deal.
I love it,
So
man. The
anyway,
persistence, man. The persistence is what made it all happen, dude.
but I swear my parents, grew to hate that the value of me because I was just always persistent, right? They were just, I would annoy the hell out of them until I got what I wanted. And like it has served me well, but I know that value of mine of persistence, my parents just grew to hate, I promise you. Like they were like,
That's hilarious,
yeah,
man. That's
great parents, don't get
hilarious.
me wrong, but I think that
Right.
even if my 6-year-old son would bug me as much as I did my parents, I would be annoyed too. So
Well, John, thank you for sharing that story, man. That was a great
of
way to
course.
cap it off because I was wondering about that myself. I was like, oh man, he must have got that really, really early on when he had no idea what he was going to be doing, or he must have paid a
Yeah.
lot of money for it, and it's neither of those. You ended up paying a little bit for I think a huge value. So
Yeah,
no, that's
it's
awesome,
definitely
man. That's
probably the most valuable part of the business at this point, quite honestly. I have one asset. If the ship goes down, which I don't think it will, but if the ship goes down, I still have that. That's probably worth a lot more than I paid for it. So hey.
you you better have two-factor authentication on your domain thing so nobody tries to steal it or anything like
Oh yeah,
that.
that's not a concern at this point, 14 years later. But I will say
Yeah.
that yeah, it's let's hope I'm not the one on the yacht one day that's like, okay, fire sale, I'll give it to you for next level. Let's hope the
Absolutely,
tables
man.
don't turn.
Right, right. John, thank you so much for your time, man. It was a pleasure chatting with you, dude. Thank you for being on. Thank you for willing to be
Yeah.
on. I'm glad we reconnected again. And yeah, man, I'll make sure to drop all the details about your agency and everything else
Mm.
in the show notes. And yeah, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And maybe
Yeah.
just share where people can follow you on like Twitter, LinkedIn, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. That would probably be
Yeah.
helpful.
Twitter at John Macdonald. That's JONMACDONALD. So no H in John, and there's an A in Macdonald. And LinkedIn, I'm easy to find as well. Just look for my name. I'm on there. Can't miss me. And then thegood.com if you're interested in optimization or just signing up to learn about all that great content that we produce and follow along with us there. We've got an email list that is all value, no selling. So, we do one time a year we hit people up. Otherwise, it's just providing value every week. So,
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for your time, John, and we'll
yeah.
chat soon again, man.
All right. Looking forward to it so much. Have a great afternoon.
All right, you too. Cheers.
Bye.
Well, you made it to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning into What is My Brain podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some value out of it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button to get notified when new episodes are live. I'm out. Thank you.